trails. One of them just got restored, the Platte Purchase, and you're going to find all the fun things there are to do in this facility for yourself, your children, or your grandchildren. And we hope someday you'll join us and come find out what is here at the Pony Express Museum in St. Joseph, Missouri.
My name is Suzanne Lear. About 20 years ago, I retired from teaching and being a counselor, and I got interested in the history here at Mount Mora. We're standing here in front of the McCord Mausoleum today, and James McCord was an early businessman in Savannah, Missouri, which is a small town just north of here. They had strange experiences on the trail as they were driving like that, things that years later that they wrote down because it was such a time that we can't imagine having such experience. This particular mausoleum happens to be the largest one here, and there are a number of McCord family members. In fact, one was just interred in here last week, I think. So it's still even being used, even though the cemetery officially opened in 1851. The Krug Mausoleum. Now everybody in town calls it Krug, but the official German pronunciation is Krug. And the Krug brothers are responsible for what we now have, and that is Krug Park. In the 1850s, they came this far to Missouri, and one of the doctors had told the older brother that he needed to go to California for his health. And so they decided that they would do that, and they did so by going down to New Orleans and all the way to California, and this was the day and time of the gold rush. And so accidentally, Henry got involved in a bakery, and the first batch of biscuits that he made were just awful. But he kept practicing, and he actually founded a bakery there. And then he and his brother began selling groceries to the miners. And they said that that was a whole lot easier than doing the mining themselves. But they actually came home with 30 pounds of gold dust, and they came back to the east, actually to Pennsylvania, and had that gold dust minted into coins. And eventually they came to St. Joseph, and they started the Krug Packing Company. We're now at Dudley Steele's family plot. You can see it's quite large and very beautiful. This is not unusual for Mount Mora, and that's why I wanted you to see something like this. Not just tombstones, not just mausoleums, although we have 30 mausoleums. We also have a number of these large family plots. And family members continue to be buried in the family plots now, even descendants that are third and fourth and sometimes fifth generation. Mount Mora started in 1851, but the first burial was much earlier than that, 1843, at least as far as we know. It was founded by three men, Simeon Kemper, Israel Landis, and Reuben Middleton. Israel Landis, he is the founder of the saddlery that made the first mochilas and saddles for the Pony Express. We are here at a pony rider's grave. We have two Pony Express riders here. I particularly wanted to talk about Bean Hamilton because he was found accidentally. But another friend of mine found his obituary. And what we learned from that is that as a very young man, he came to St. Joseph with his mother. And my further research told me that his mother came in 1844, so she was one of the very first residents of St. Joseph, a single mother raising these three children, and she came to St. Joe and opened a boarding house. He was 8 years old. Bean grew up, and Bean became a Pony Express rider. His nickname was Bean because his middle name was Benjamin, but we all know that the pony riders needed to be lean and thin and wiry, and so Bean was probably a good nickname. One day, Bean's best friend, Sloan Young, came to him and said, "I have a new horse. I'd like for you to try it out." And so Bean said sure, and they took the horses and went to the racetrack. Bean was on the new horse, and Sloan was on a horse behind him. And when they made that first curve, what we know is Bean stood up in the stirrups, and my guess is that he spooked the horse, because we know that the horse threw him, and Bean went off and his foot caught in a stirrup. And when Sloan got to him, the horse had dragged him 100 yards and Bean was dead of a broken neck. The very sad thing about that is thinking about all of the land over which Bean rode as a pony rider in all kinds of weather, as fast as he could possibly ride. And then to think that just on a beautiful fall afternoon, on a racetrack of all things, with a horse, and of course he was more at home when in a saddle than probably in a kitchen chair. We even had a group in town that were so interested in the Hamilton family that they paid for having these tombstones all reset, new foundations put down, and the tombstones cleaned, because we want this to be a place of remembrance for a young man who did something special in those early days. We are at the other pony rider's grave here. You can see the hitching post, and this is his gravestone. Charlie Cliff lived long enough that people in more modern times had a chance to meet him. They got to talk to him, ask him what it was like to be a pony rider. And he was one of the very first to be a rider. And I was reading not long ago that he was the one to bring in the last packet of mail when the Pony Express closed in October of 1861. And so this too is very special. I mentioned at the last Pony Express rider's grave that we had people interested in resetting the tombstones, because in an old cemetery like this, the land never having been plowed is very soft. Tombstones like this tend to sink. And so another group in town gave us the money to have these all raised and new bases poured, because our town really does understand, they really do realize that Mount Mora is a very significant historic place.
Well, I'm Corky Smith. I'm representing the Donovan County Historical Society. Originally, this was called Whitehead's Trading Post. James Whitehead was a licensed trader for the Kickapoo. There were numerous ferries prior to the ferry that was established here in 1855, because Kansas could not license ferries until it became a territorial legislature. So prior to that, there were numerous ferries that operated out of St. Joseph on up the river, but licensed through the state of Missouri. The earliest ferry was in St. Joe in 1839, operated by Roubidou. About the year of 1851, in November, James Whitehead was licensed as a trader here with the Kickapoo. And in 1855, then when the territory was established, he was granted a license to operate a ferry here. And then it became Belmont in 1856, and was Belmont until 1876, when it was abandoned. We established this monument, and this is a starting point for those folks that want to come and visit Donovan County and its historic Oregon Trail or the St. Joe Road. This is the beginning point at Wathena, and we were blessed with the National Park Service providing historic signs throughout Donovan County, and give credit to a former person in our Gateway chapter of John Atkinson.
I'm Daniel Johnson, director of the Rebede Row Museum. What the Rebede Row Museum is one of the earliest sites here in St. Joseph, and it was highly involved with the trails. Joseph Rebede, the founder of the town, built the Rebede Row to house travelers traveling west on the Oregon and California Trail. Interesting fact is he actually didn't charge rent to anyone living in St. Joe. He only charged rent to those who traveled west. Fascinatingly, the building is actually built at the level of the back of what a wagon would be. He built all the doors on one side of the building so that when travelers would come to stay with him, they could back their wagon up and drop the back gate directly onto the building, and they could walk out of the back of their wagon onto the floors of the building and unload all their stuff into their rooms. He, like I said, would try and find the best people to stay here in St. Joe, who would also help people as they went west. His son actually owned one of the local ferries, and so he would basically just tell his son that he had a person staying with him, and they would get to the very front of the line. Here at the Row, we do have a number of items from the Wagons West movement, including different pieces that would have traveled west with families. We have a number of rooms that are set up looking like rooms when that era was around and what people would have brought with them.
I'm Jackie Lewin, and I am president of the Gateway chapter of the Oregon California Trails Association. And I'm past president, national president of the Oregon California Trails Association. I might tell you a little bit about the partnership of the St. Joseph Museum and the Oregon California Trails Association. It started back in late 1980s. When the St. Joseph Museum helped form the Gateway chapter. As doing that, we learned so much about the trail. It was kind of a learning process for us too. One of the things that we did was to travel the trail and collect a number of diaries, and those diaries are in the collection of the St. Joseph Museum now, and you can also see those on the website for the Gateway chapter. I might also add that the St. Joseph Museum also has one of the best collections of the Pony Express history. A couple of years ago, the Oregon California Trails Association received a grant to have an intern, Lauren Manning, come to St. Joseph and help develop an interactive map along the trail. This has been really special to us here. She gave a program for us last fall. Even though you might not see the things that she talks about being here in 1860, she would mark on the map where things, or 1840s actually she started. You could drive by these areas and actually imagine what it was looking like at the time of the westward immigration. So, next time you come to St. Joseph, and we hope that you do, you can bring that map with you and take a driving tour of St. Joseph, visit all of the historic sites that we have here, and use the map and just use your imagination as to what it was like to have been here at the time of the westward migration. During the years 1849, 50, and 51, when St. Joseph was the leading jumping off point for immigrants going west.